Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Jonathan McMillan, author of Better Than Average Goals, founder and director of Be Better Than Average, and I have the exciting duty today to speak to one of my most favorite mentors, surrogate moms, just a wonderful all-around lady in general. She is an award-winning author. Her and her daughter started a great conversation earlier this year with a blockbuster book. Her name is Patricia Raybon. She is a mentor to me. Like I said, I've known her practically all of my life. She kind of led me into pursuing my career as a journalist and as a lifelong student. Uh, I'm very happy to welcome you, Mrs. Raybon. Thank you for being here with me.
I am delighted. I just absolutely love that we're talking this morning. We've had many, many, many talks.
Yes, we do, and that's honestly what prompted me to begin on this experiment, if you will. I love the talks that we have. Always walk away from them feeling invigorated, inspired, encouraged, and I want to share that with people. The information that I'm getting from my mentors that led to my success, however limited it is right now, is directly because of the people who I have in my life. And I feel selfish that I don't share that with other people. So once again, thank you for being who you are to me and agreeing to share your wisdom with the world. I'm excited about it.
Thank you. Let's get started.
Okay, so what I've given an introduction of who you are to me. I know I missed a ton of things. Why don't you let me know, or let our viewers know who you are and what got you started on your journey?
Well, I am an author. I'm a writer, and sometimes, Jonathan, I try to put other labels or names on what I do or who I am, but at the heart, that's who I am, and I write books and essays that help people bridge their divides. And
Okay.
I got started because I love to read. I had a teacher in third grade, I think it was, at Columbine Elementary School in Denver, Colorado. And she asked me one day, Patricia, do you love to write? Do you want to be a writer? And my answer was yes, I do want to be a writer. I love to read. I love to write. And she said to me, you are a writer. Now, this is the only African-American woman teacher I had in elementary school. I was in the third grade. This is during Jim Crow segregation. And she said to me, her name was Laura Smith. And she said to me, Patricia, you are a writer. And when I had my first book signing at the Tattered Cover, I invited her as my special guest. She had retired from teaching by then. But it was such an inspiration for me to have someone when I was so young in life, to affirm the passion that I had. I had no idea I could make a living out of being a writer. But she affirmed that. And I have walked in that path my entire life. I worked for a dozen or more years as a newspaper reporter. Then I went up to the University of Colorado, taught journalism for another 15 plus years. I have 5 books, published books, and I'm still writing. I do a lot of other things, but that's primarily who I am.
And that's powerful. That is very, very
Well,
powerful.
that's why, Jonathan, when I could see your skill as a writer, I really wanted to support it and encourage you, because I know good books and good writing change lives.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you touched on something that I have learned over the past few years is the labels that we give ourselves power. is one of the things when I do my workshops with the young men that I work with. One of the first exercises we do is I say I am, and then they have to fill in the blanks.
Yes.
And then once we start to fill those blanks in with some positive affirming titles and labels, then we work on defining what the goal is to get to that point. So it's encouraging to hear that's also an exercise that you have not even deliberately engaged in, but have engaged in by saying I am a writer. And
Well,
go ahead.
I have deliberately engaged in it in the writing workshops that I teach.
Mm-hmm.
There's a segment called Finding Your Writer's Voice, and that requires people to say who they are. I have personally a lot of identities. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, an educator, I'm a Westerner, I'm a woman, I'm a Christian. I have written essays and books on almost all of those identities. So it's a branding exercise, but it also helps people embrace exactly what they are in the world and to really own that. And and you've proven you can make a living owning who you are and what matters to
Yep. Yep. So with all that said, has your strategy always been clear as to how to get from where you were at that young third grader who
you.
the teacher said you are a writer to here you are today with as a award-winning author and all the other things that you said that you are that kind of define your success? Has that always been clear?
No. I'll say it this way, if you'll allow me, Jonathan, I'll say it with a faith answer. It was clear to God.
Okay.
It wasn't clear to me. And so I did what I could see when I could see it. And when I graduated from high school, I thought, well, I want to write, and the only way I knew how to do that was to go into journalism. But and I got I have an undergraduate and a master's degree in journalism. I went to work for the Denver Post in their newsroom. And one day I saw an announcement on the bulletin board for an opening in their features department, where that's the department where they write human interest stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was an interesting moment in my life, Jonathan. I didn't have to apply. I could have talked myself out of applying, but I went ahead and took the risk. I applied for that transfer to a different department, and I found my writing legs. I found my writing life. It changed everything for me. So I started writing this long form journalism. That's what it's called. That has allowed me to write books.
Mm.
And so to answer your question, no, I don't know if anybody knows the path from the beginning, but we discover it by putting one foot in front of the other. And as we continue to move forward, what we couldn't see behind us starts to become evident. And
Right.
so moving ahead, even when you can't see exactly where you're going, is a very, very powerful thing to do. I think you and I have talked about that.
We have one of my, I don't know who said it, but one of my favorite quotes is identity is defined by action and action defines identity. So being a writer, you write. If you're a dentist, then you go to dental school. You don't sit in a barber, you don't go to a barber chair and say I'm a dentist and start cutting people's hair. That makes you a barber. And it goes back to what we were just saying with the whole I am defining who you are and walking boldly in that definition helps is strategy.
And and again, I write for faith audiences. So if you allow
Mhm.
me to say it this way, there is
Yes.
in the Bible, there's a great story about this that I love. These sick
Mhm.
men who had leprosy came to Jesus begging to be healed because he had been, he was a healer. And so he says to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest," because that was the process. And then the next verse says, "And as they were going, they were healed." And it's just so profound to me that as we go, if we get up every day and go, follow our passion, connect with people, do our work, learn what we need to learn, then all the other pieces start to fall into place.
Right.
It's
Right.
that that's a Jim Rohn, I think, idea too. That if you put action on your dreams, then they start to materialize.
Right. Right.
So powerful.
It, it's funny you mentioned Jim Rohn. As you well know, I read him regularly, listen to him regularly. Um, I was having a conversation with somebody last week, and he asked me, "Did I know Jim Rohn?" I said, "Yeah, he wrote my last book." uh, but he's been a big influence on me as far as goal setting. Um, I mean, make the joke serious, a lot of my last book was based off the things that I learned from him and his teachings. Uh, with you, obviously being a writer was a goal of yours, and being a faith-based writer was a goal of yours. Um, Last year or this year, actually, you released a huge book with your daughter Alana. Um, what type of goals did you set around like that book release, and how did you manage those?
Well, for a book, there are a couple of well, there are some scheduling goals that have to do with deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
No, you're fine.
And that was dictated to a large degree by our publisher, who said, we need this manuscript by a certain date. And so, in order to meet that, what I have learned is to work with an accountability partner.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, Jonathan, it works so well to have it. It may not be somebody even in your industry. Maybe it's just a really loyal, good friend. And I've worked with a good friend with my books a couple of times. And this is someone who will call you, say once a week, and ask you, did you finish that chapter? Are you running into any obstacles or any snags? And then consistently do that and as you move through the project and get to the end of the road. So that's one way to define and meet goals. And then for books, there is the quantifiable goal of how many did you sell. And so people always ask me, how's your book doing? And my answer is, when I do the work, the book gets sold. If I go out and speak to people, have say yes to speaking engagements, if I go to book signings, if I have all my um, materials in my purse, so if somebody asks for a business card or a brochure, if I do all of that stuff, then I sell books. So that's another way to measure. And then for me, a measurement is God pleased with what I'm doing?
Okay.
So, and I have there are clear answers biblically in the Bible for, is this the gesture of love, and are you loving people? So, I strongly agree, and Michael Hyatt talks a lot about having measurable goals, not just kind of a dream out there in the sky, but some definite goals you want to meet.
Mm-hmm.
And when we write them down, and I have on here's right next to my computer monitor on the wall, I have my goals for the year. And so I can look at them every day and ask, am I meeting, am I meeting these goals? Um,
Mm.
it's just a practical thing to do that really makes a difference.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. When last year, about this time last year, maybe a little earlier, I wrote down my goals for 2015. I wrote them down in the present sense of it is December 31st, 2016, and I have published the Be Better Than Average goals. I have facilitated 2 workshops. I have uh, spoken at 20 engagements.
Mhm.
And yesterday I was looking through some stuff to complete an application. I was looking at all the souvenirs of this 2015 journey, and a lot of times, you speak at speaking engagements, they give you name tags that you put around your neck. And I had facilitator, I had presenter, I had all of these things um, that just were tick marks off of my goals list from last year. One of the things I did for most of this year is I took a picture on my phone of my goals list,
Uh-huh.
and every day at different intervals throughout the day, it would come up as a reminder on my phone of
Yeah.
what my goals were, and so it would keep me focused. If nothing else, to get me off of Facebook.
Yes. Yeah. You're talking about the future casting, and
Yes.
you're aware that I do a or one of my services that I offer,
Hmm.
the journal writing class for entrepreneurs called Journal to the Self. And one of the journal um, categories, one of the journal writing techniques is to do that forecasting. So you write a date in the future, a year from now or
Hmm.
5 years from now, write it on a paper, and then imagine what you want your life to be at that time. And then it really, as you just said, it really helps you think about what you have to do or not do to get to that place.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so I'm so glad you mentioned that. It's a very, very effective goal setting technique.
So we've talked a lot about techniques right now for defining and accomplishing your goals. uh, One of the things that I've come across with people when I talk to them about goals, they have the yeah, but, or I'm trying to, but syndrome. And that's where they're just looking at the obstacles, and they think that people like you and we don't have any obstacles, which I get a belly laugh every time. If
Yeah.
you don't mind, what have been some of your biggest obstacles, and what did you do to overcome them?
My biggest obstacle, well, there are two, one coin, and there's a different, each coin has its own side.
Hmm.
So for me, the biggest obstacle, or at least as I understood it, was growing up during black during
Hmm.
uh, legal Jim Crow segregation. Not only was that an obstacle just day to day, but emotionally and mentally, I had to uh, overcome that hurdle to get to the confidence, the belief in myself that I needed to do the work that the Lord has blessed me to do. So, but the interesting thing is that that obstacle has become part of um, my life's path. I've written my first book was on racial healing.
Hmm.
That book won. That book won several awards. I ended up on the Today Show with that book. Patricia, who grew up on Gaylord Street in Denver, and there's this great story in the Bible about a man named Joseph,
Hmm.
whose brothers tried to, not the father of Jesus, but Joseph in the Old Testament, whose brother sold him into slavery. And but anyway, along the path, he ended up running Egypt. And so way late in the day, his brothers, who years ago uh, sold him into slavery, they show up because they're starving. There's a famine, and so he tells them, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." And so all the hard things that he had gone through, uh, but because of God's mercy and grace, he was able to use to become the leader of, the most important nation in the world at that time. So sometimes, our obstacles are the path. I'm not that into Zen Buddhism, but there is a Zen Buddhism idea that says, if you're looking for the path, look at the obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so true for so many of us. People who I was talking to a woman who had, just the other day, an author who had childhood polio, and she overcame that huge obstacle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now she writes books and teaches journaling to the disabled. And it's become her career. Her obstacle became her career path. And so, just as we need to embrace who we are, if we examine the obstacle, there's going to be opportunity there.
And that's great perspective. I'm living it myself with my path.
Yes.
For many, many years, going back to what we said about defining ourselves, I looked at myself as a black male with 2 felonies and just a whole lot of hard luck. And I wore it around my neck like an anchor.
Yes.
And then when I had that epiphany of, this is my story, I know how to navigate around this obstacle, and began to write about it and speak upon it, it opened up a career path for me.
Yes.
And the skills and the habits that led to that success are universal. They apply to the working mom, they apply to the executive at whatever company, and it applies to the young black man or a young Hispanic man who's trying to find his place in the world. I just that's why I teach what I teach. That's why we're having this conversation. Is the obstacle does not define you; it just leads you to your destination.
Isn't that, it's so ironic.
It really is.
But when we're paying attention to that and accept it, the doors just open one after another.
Mm-hmm. There's a movie, Pirates of the Caribbean, with Johnny Depp, and he says in there, the problem is not the problem, it's your perception of the problem that's the problem.
Yes.
So obviously, being able to change your perception or have that paradigm shift is a very useful skill or habit when looking at obstacles and circumstances. Are there any other skills or habits that have led to what you determined to be your success?
Yes. Persistence and
Persistence.
you know, just keeping at it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a woman in the church that I attend, who many people know in Denver. Her name is Marie Greenwood, and she's 102 years old. She just published her second book a couple of years ago. I think right after she turned 100 years
Mm-hmm.
old. And when I think of a Marie Greenwood, or I think of my parents. I think that was one of your questions. Who's my greatest inspiration?
Mm-hmm. Your biggest influence or mentor? Mm-hmm.
These are people who simply never never gave up. You keep at it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this country, Jonathan, there's this idea of retirement. And what I want to offer people the idea is um, that that's really foreign to how we are wired. I'm not working at my what I call my job anymore when I was teaching at the university.
Hmm.
But I get up every day and work every day, and so staying with it anyway, even though there are ups and downs. I think about my marriage. My husband and I are getting ready to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary. How do we get there? You keep going. You keep at it. And that's certainly true, in the business world. Don't
Well,
give up. Don't give up.
and that's probably the best piece of advice that I've heard you tell me, because there have been over the several years that I've been kind of pursuing this journalism career and in defining what my path was. There have been some hard times. There have been financial aid didn't work out, so I wasn't going to school anymore, and just so many things. But and I would talk to you, it's like, well, you're doing great. Don't give up. And that was the inspiration and the motivation and encouragement that I needed at that time. Um, and it's worked out for me. I'm still on the path. Obviously, I haven't made the $1 million yet, but I won't make it unless I won't make it if I give up. So I
Right.
always thank you for that advice, and I'm glad that someone gave it to you.
Yes. Well, you know what?
Um,
I think people give us advice by example. Sometimes not because they're saying it, but just because of the way they live.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so I've certainly seen people live that principle, and it has inspired me too.
Right, right. So I want to wrap this up in just a couple more minutes here, but I wanted to ask you. I think probably the two most important questions. I won't ask you for the best piece of advice that you were given because obviously we just covered that. But what I want to ask is tomorrow is or a couple of days from now is Thanksgiving. I'm a huge advocate of recognizing everything that you're grateful for in order to receive more.
Yeah.
If I could ask, what are you most grateful for right now?
I'm grateful for perspective. I knew you were going to ask that question,
Hmm.
but on this particular day, Jonathan, I'm
Yeah.
grateful for perspective. And this, by elaborating a little bit, I may date this conversation, but I'll take that risk to explain what I mean.
Hmm.
This past week, there was a terrible um, terrorism incident, and so the State Department yesterday issued travel advisory, and we're at a really um, moment of high tension in the world,
Hmm.
and it was really bothering me yesterday, and um, I knew that that was because I was thinking about the problem and that I needed a different perspective. And so there is a place, here I go back to the Bible, but there is a place in the Bible where the Apostle Paul is writing to one of the early churches in Philippi. And he says to them, keep your eye, he tells them to keep their eyes on Christ, on the Lord. That's what he tells them, to have the mind of Christ. But then he says to them, whatever is true, whatever is good, whatever is honorable, whatever is lovely, he goes down this list, whatever is excellent, all these things, think about these things. And, not the negative things. Think about what's true, not what you're afraid of or what could happen or think
Hmm.
about what's true and what's honorable, what's good, and what's things of excellence. Like we're having this conversation today, talking about goal setting. And these are good things to think about. And
Right.
as we do, then our perspective changes from the problem to the positive. I gave a talk last week to the Rotary Club about bridging our divides. And that was, of the 3-point talk, that was the last point. You know, so easy to get sucked in to worrying about the problem. But
Mm-hmm.
when we turn our perspective and look for the positives, focus on positives, we start to see solutions and possibilities, and we get hope and encouragement. We can, you can have a nice conversation with somebody like we're doing today.
Right.
It changes everything. So I'm grateful today for perspective, for positive perspective. And so I encourage your viewers and your listeners to try that today, and it just changes everything.
You're so on point because, well, first off, let me say, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that in a thing called synchronicity,
Yes.
that everything works together for the sake of being together. Um, and this morning, a lot in the hopes that this goes nationwide. People may not be familiar with what's going on in my city right now in Denver, but there's a lot of violence going on, a lot of gang violence. I think
Yes.
3 people were shot last night,
Uh,
and I got on Facebook, and that's just last night. And over the past few days, have been a lot of other shootings. And
uh-huh.
I got on Facebook this morning. I saw a lot of despair. I saw a lot of
Mhm.
people grieving, and as you know, I attempt to do a daily affirmation. I am better than average affirmation, and I thought about one that goes hand in hand with what you just said. And so I shared it again this morning. I said, I am better than average because I am not discouraged, nor am I influenced by the negativity of the world. I do
Mhm.
not contribute to the negativity.
Yes.
While the average person gives energy and calls attention to that which is upsetting and disappointing, I direct my focus and spend my energy on finding and creating solutions and opportunities for the world and I to experience gratitude. Be
Yeah.
better than average. And it's just,
Excellent.
I
Yes.
love the fact that you articulated everything I was trying to get across in that quote and in your answer about what you're grateful for right now. And that's perspective.
Yes.
Um, and that's one of the reasons I love you so much.
Yeah.
uh,
It's about
so
it's
go
about
ahead.
making choices.
It
It's
is.
about, yeah, it really is.
It's choosing to be happy. It's choosing to be a contributor. Is choosing to be a creator of good and not negative.
Yes.
So, well, I want to wrap this up, but I want to give the world the opportunity to experience you. Maybe not as much as well as I have, because I want to keep part of you to myself. I'll be selfish in that way.
Okay.
But I know you have a website and you have a plethora of books that can help people on the journey that they're with, especially aspiring writers, and people who are looking for some encouragement down whatever spiritual path, whether it's Christian or otherwise. You have great information that I think the world needs to be opened up to. What is the best way for someone to get in touch with you if they want to utilize your services to get a book or even contact you for coaching?
I am at my website. It's patriciaraybon.com, and Raybon is spelled Raybon. And
Okay.
there's a place there to connect with me, and people do it all the time. So um, I hope to hear from some of the people who had a chance to watch our conversation today.
All right. I hope to get in touch with you as well. Mrs. Raybon, I thank you so much. I love you to death. I will be in touch with you shortly. If not, in the next couple of days. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank
Give
you.
Mr. Raybon my love. Tell the girls I said hello. Pass my love on to them, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll talk with you later.
Love you. Bye bye.
I love you too. Goodbye.